So whether if it's summertime and you've got an overabundance of bell peppers and onions, or you've gotten a good buy somewhere at Costco or somewhere that you cannot pass up. So you've got all these onions and peppers that you need to put up. Well, I'll tell you, I've got so many jars of dehydrated vegetables and peppers, and my freezer's full. So what do? You can them, and I love them this way. To me, it's just to their most natural state right here. Now, freezing your vegetables will keep their nutrients better than canning them, but I tell you, I've only got so much room in my freezer, so this is a wonderful idea. So y'all stick around and let's can some good old onions and some sweet bell peppers. I'm going to show you how I'm going to cut my bell peppers up. Now I'm going to be putting mine in half pint jars. I've got a bunch of these, and this is going to be plenty for me, Mr. Brown. Now, if there's something I'm cooking for company or need to take somewhere, I can just open up 2 jars. But you can do it in pints. You can do it in wide mouth or just regular mouth jar, whichever. And if you do it in your regular pint jars, you'll be able to just slice that bell pepper in thick slices and just stick them down in your jar standing up like this. But since I'm going to be putting them in half pints, I'm going to have to chunk them and then cut them in half for them to fit. Now, the one thing that I have found that you don't want to do is dice these up and put them in your jar, because these have to be pressure canned. You cannot water bath these. There's not enough acidity in there, so safely you've got to pressure can them. If you dice them up in little pieces, you're going to end up probably with mush. So I'm going to show you how. This is how I've been chunking them up for putting them in my half pints. And of course, when you need them and you want them in smaller pieces, you can just dice them up smaller, of course. And you want to make sure that you don't get seeds in there. If you do, it's not going to hurt nothing, but you know, you'd rather not have seeds in it. And I keep these seeds. I've had people tell me, you know, they can't grow nothing out of the seeds from the grocery store bell peppers, but I beg to differ. I've had them to come up and grow. But sometimes, you know, any kind of seed, sometimes they won't germinate. Okay, I'm going to cut these up. I'm going to cut this one in half, and then I'm just going to chunk it, and that's how I'm going to put mine in my jars, just like that. But if you were using pint jars, you could cut them just like this and stick them down in your jar just like that. We're going to be canning onions today too, so I'm going to be using my pint jars for that. I'm not going to be using my wide mouth jars because I saved them for my meat. I'm going to be canning meat this week too. And I have more regular mouth pint jars than I do wide mouth. So I save them for what I really need them for. Even though, you know, it'd be easy for me to get the peppers out of this half pint. In fact, I think I can get 1 or 2 in this one. You want to leave an inch headspace at the top. And you just put them in your jars. You want to fit them down in there. You want them to get plenty in there, but try not to just cram them to where they're so tight, because you want that everything in the middle to come up to temp too. That's why they don't want you to try to can these peppers whole or onions whole, unless they're just little bitty onions. Because the middle of that onion or pepper or whatever, it has to get to that temperature too, that safe temp. Now I've got 3 pieces left, and I'm telling y'all not to cram them in there. I might have to put them in some of my other jars. But anyways, y'all get the idea. Then we're going to go over here and we are going to finish the process. These jars are at room temperature. My bell peppers are at room temperature. My water in my canner is at room temperature. There's 3 quarts in there. I always use 3 quarts in my pressure canner of water. The water that's going in here will be room temperature, and it'll all be brought up to temp at the same time. And what I have found out is that it's safe and that I have less mushy products doing it this way. Now there's a lot of people that will take their peppers and they'll blanch them for 3 minutes before they put them in their jar just to keep the green color. I don't do that. It's not a necessity, but you can do it if you want to. So is there anything else? I'll probably think of it here in a minute. But let's get you over there and let's get started with the rest of the process. Now what I started with is I had 8 large green bell peppers. You can do this with any color sweet bell pepper. You can do this with pretty much any pepper, whether it be a hot pepper or just any kind of pepper that you cook with. You can do this process with. It was 8 large, and it's made 10 of your half pints. So that's what I'm going to be getting out of here. Now I'm going to be doing my onions here in a little bit in pints. So now I'm not sure how many I'm going to be able to get out of what I've got, but this is just a process that, you know, I think is going to be so handy when my bell peppers do really start coming off, because you know, as far as freezer space, and if it ever gets to the point that we can't have electricity, you know, a lot of stuff's going to end up having to be canned or dehydrated. I don't want everything dehydrated, but and I don't want everything pickled. I'm kind of that in-between person there. I do like a lot of things that dehydrated, don't get me wrong, but I don't want everything dehydrated unless it comes down to necessity. But canning is a necessity too. Now, you can put in each one of these half pints, you can put a half a teaspoon of salt, or you can put a teaspoon of salt in your pint jars. I'm not going to put any salt. The salt would just be for flavoring, and for the different recipes that I'll be using this for, I really don't want any salt in there. I want to be able to control my salt as I cook. What I will be using though is some pickle crisp granules, and this sometimes it really works, and it does help keep your stuff crispier where it's just not mushy. So for my half pints, my little jelly jars, and I've got tons of these, I'm going to put about a half a teaspoon in each one, and I would put a teaspoon in my pint jars. So what we got over here is we've got my canner, we've got 3 quarts of water, I've got my top over here, my lid, I've already got my bell peppers in my jars. Like I said, everything's at room temperature. This is my water in my canner is not on yet, and I will not turn it on until I put my jars in there. I've got my rings, I've got my lids over here, and I've got my water to put in the jars. I got my pickling granules here. It is called Pickle Crisp granules. I got these at Walmart, and they're smaller little containers, but they had these on sale about fall time. I was trying to get rid of a bunch of canning stuff, I guess, so I bought up a lot of these little bitty ones. Your jars should be cleaned and sterilized. Like I said, they're not hot. The jars are not hot, the peppers aren't hot, the water's not hot, nothing's hot. Everything's at room temperature. So I'm going to put, let me get me a teaspoon. I'm going to put half a teaspoon of my pickle crisp. Now you can pickle these, But that's a whole different process. You're going to use your pickling spices and a little bit of vinegar in there. And when you pickle it, you can actually hot water bath it because it will have the acidity in there. But this has to be pressure canned. And we're going to be doing some onions. I know there's all different kinds of ways to preserve your onions when you get a big harvest, or say you go to Costco or somewhere and they've got them huge bags of onions on sale, the sweet ones that are really good, and you're wanting to put them up. This is a good way to do it because it's just your onions. There's nothing in there, no spices, and you can just open a jar up, throw it in a strainer, and strain your water out, and you got some onions just ready to throw in your soups or stir fry or anything like that. So it's a good thing. So we got our pickle crisp in there. And as that pressure cans, that pickle crisp will dissolve. I may end up having to take some of this water out, not sure. I'm going to get it in here and I'm going to kind of debubble it. Whoops, and then I'll see where I'm at. That one's way too full. So you just put some good, clean, clear water. And I do have a tablespoon of vinegar in my canner because we have very limey water, and that keeps it from being so cloudy. And it does help from all that smudge getting all over the side of your jars. Okay, I've got too much water in each one of them, but I want to debubble it and see where I'm at. So I'm going to go around the side. I'm going to try to go down the middle a little bit. Now you want an inch headspace. Just pour that there. So I'm going to have to put that in a different jar. And then you just want to, after you get it filled up and everything where you want it, just clean the top of your rims. Put your lid and your ring on there, finger tight, and I'm just going to start putting them down here in my canner. See a seed right there. This one's pretty full too. Time I get done, I'll have a whole nother jar. See, when you go to debubbling, you can see that you find more room, or you'll have to take some out. So I'm just going to continue to get my jars in the canner. And then we'll be back. Okay, I got all my jars full. You can see what they look like. And I've got them all here in the canner. Now, I'm going to turn my back burner on. This back burner is the one that I can control better. Now it's going to take longer when you're getting everything up to temp than it would if you had everything hot already. I have to find my arrow. And it helps if I got my glasses on. Make sure that your seal around is good. It's in there good. And always make sure that the spout here, before every canning process, I always look through that and make sure I can see through it, that it's not stopped up. Do I have this backwards again? Yes. I gotta turn this around, y'all. I do this every time. Yeah. Okay, everything's on there good. Now, I've got it on pretty much high. I'm gonna let it come up, and when the steam starts coming out my spout here really good, I'll start timing it for 10 minutes. Now I'm gonna start getting my onions ready to can. Okay, you can see the steam coming out. We're gonna time it for 10 minutes now. Okay, it's been 10 minutes. We got our gauge on there. When this comes up to 10, then we'll start counting down 30 minutes. After 30 minutes in the canner, and then letting the pressure go down completely, we got us some canned bell peppers. Now, the water looks different, I know, but what that is that's what you might call bell pepper juice or bell pepper broth or something. And you can use that when you open this up to use these peppers, say like in soups or spaghetti sauce or something like that. You can pour that juice in there. I mean, that's all that is. That's just juice from the peppers and being canned. But they're not mushy looking. They look good. They kept some of their color. So, good job. So now we're going to do our onions. I know some of y'all are probably going to say, well, why didn't you just can the onions and peppers together? And this is why. Because there's going to be times that I just want onions. And there's going to be times I just want peppers. And if I want onions and peppers, I'll open up a jar of onions and I'll open up a jar of peppers. But I like having the option. And like I've said 100 times, and I am an ingredient canner, and I just want onions and I just want peppers. So, because there's just so many different recipes to use both of these in, or just onions or just peppers, you never know. So that's the reason I do it this way. But anyways, this is the same process. I got my canner here with 3 quarts of water in it and a little bit of vinegar. I don't have the fire on under it, so it's just everything's at room temperature. My jars are at room temperature, my onions are at room temperature, my water's at room temperature, and I am going to put some pickle crisp in it. So that's all there is. Now, if you're not wanting to use pickle crisp, but you're wanting to put a little salt in there, you can do that too. You could put, I don't think I'd put a whole teaspoon of salt. I'd probably put a half a teaspoon of salt. And I have in the past, and I'll put the link down below, I have a video making caramelized onions and canning them. But that's not what this is. This is just your plain old everyday onions that you have so much use for, that you're always needing onions for. That's what this is. This is not caramelized. But I do have caramelized in the pantry. And if you'd like to see that video, just go down to the description box below the videos, and the link will be down there if I don't forget. So this is simple enough, just like last time. And I know y'all are probably saying, you're putting more pickle crisp in there than really what you're supposed to or what people call for. I'm putting in here what I know works. So, you don't have to put this much, but I am. I put a half a teaspoon in my my little jelly jars, and I'm going to put a whole teaspoon in here in my pint jars. This is not powder. This is pickle crisp granulars. And like I said, in the process of it pressure canning, it will dissolve the little granulars. And this does help quite a bit that your onions and your peppers just don't get completely mushy. And of course, not cutting them up really little helps a lot too. So we got that done, and we're just going to pour our water in here. I'm going to leave about a ½ inch headspace. Now, if you wanted to gild the lily on this, you could even, instead of just water, you could put chicken broth. But once this does pressure can, you'll have like onion broth in your jar. And that right there is the beginning of onion soup. Danny loves that soup that you get at the hibachi grill, and it's an onion soup, and it's got little fried onions floating around in it, and it's just a broth. It's not really a soup, it's an onion like broth, and he loves it. So a ½ inch headspace. I hope that this has not been too complicated. I mean, first time canning, I try so hard just to make it so simple, because so many people are so intimidated by pressure canning. And I tell you all the time, don't be. Don't be intimidated by it. All my life, I've never, but I know people have, heard of anybody getting hurt from pressure canning. Now, if you're not being safe with it and doing things that you shouldn't be doing, yeah, that's with anything you do. Okay, we got that, our rims cleaned. We got our water, our salt, and our onions, and that's all we need. Now I'm just going to put my lids on here. Now, I know people are probably saying, well, when you got that many onions in the garden, you can put them, hang them. You got to let them cure, of course, and you can hang them in kind of a dark, dry, cool place. And they do, because you know, I still got a bunch back here where we keep our squash and stuff from last fall, and but eventually they will start trying to they'll go the other way, and of course they'll start sprouting and everything. So this is just another way of preserving them onions that you can use in just about anything, just about most of your recipes that call for onions. Right here it is. And it's just so simple. Okay, I've got to get me another lid and wash it good and sterilize it, and then we come back. I should have all these done and in the canner. Okay, hold the boat, everybody. Miss Lori, you didn't show debubbling them onions. Shame on you. I know it, and I had to go back and debubble them before I put the rings on. And then I was so excited about it and just lost my mind. I thought, I didn't even film that. So anyways, debubble your onions just like you did the peppers. I do. I lose my mind sometimes. Okay, we got our jars in the canner, and now we're just waiting for the pressure to start coming up, for the steam to escape out of the little steam hole there, and then we'll time it for 10 minutes after that. Okay, while the onions are doing their thing, I want to talk to you for just a little bit. I want to show y'all, do not throw your onion peelings away. Keep it all there. What I'll do is I'll bag this up and I'll put it in the freezer, and I will make some good old broth out of this, because when you make your broth out of scraps, you're going to strain it anyways, and you talk about some healthy good broth. So that's going to go in the freezer. Never throw your onion peelings away. And I wanted to show y'all up close. See how pretty they are? You can tell they're not mushy. And this is just the right amount for something that me and Paul will probably eat, and have these on there, whatever it be. There's so many different recipes I can use this with. And that if I need onions, I'll just open me a jar of onions. And I will continue to do this, especially this summer when I start getting bell peppers. And I do hope that I do have a good batch of bell peppers and onions this year. I'll do a lot of them this way because I've got so much dehydrated on my pantry shelves anyways. And these have a long shelf life. I'm not for sure. I need to look that up. Not for sure how long, but I just know they got a pretty good shelf life, especially the onions. As long as the seal stays good, they're good. And like I said, you can use that broth in there, that that pepper juice in there. It'd be good. And a lot of y'all don't know what pickle crisp granules are, but it's calcium chloride is what it is, and it just helps to keep things a little bit crispier. A lot of people use this in their pickles and stuff. And this, you know, a lot of people used to would soak their pickles in lime before they would can them to keep them crisper, and this just kind of keeps you from having to do that. So it's a good thing to have on hand, especially if you're making stuff like pickled squash and stuff like that, because squash gets so mushy when you can it, and this right here helps. And it also helps the way that you can stuff too. Most recipes you go to will tell you to your onions to cut them up smaller and to cook them before you can them, and you don't have to do that because by the time you get done you got a bunch of mushy onions. Pretty much just mush onions is pretty much what it is. So, and a lot of people, like I said, will blanch their peppers for about 3 minutes, and that's fine if that's what you want to do. There's nothing wrong with that. I just skip that. I don't do it. So anyways, but if you want to cook your onions, if you cook your onions and you're putting them in jars, make sure your jars are hot and everything's hot. If you're going to put hot onions in your jars, what I'm saying. But you're going to end up with mushier mushy onions, I'm afraid. So anyways, I just want to tell you all that. And I also wanted to tell you to make sure that you wash your bell peppers really good. Make sure there's no blemishes on them. Don't try to can bell peppers that the skin, the outer skin of that bell pepper needs to be really hard. It needs to be tough. It don't need to be wrinkled up and real soft. It needs to be, you know, a pretty good looking healthy bell pepper. Your onions, you don't need nothing that's bruised up or starting to go bad. You could cut a bag place out and use the rest of a good onion. Make sure when you peel that onion that you wash that onion very, very good, because even though the inside, you know, of the onion layers, they're still I mean, I have cut the skins off some of them, took it off, and on that first layer it's kind of black and dirty in there, so make sure you clean your onions good too. And then just cut them in hunks. Don't cut them up, and don't dice them up. Do not dice your onions up in little pieces because you will have mush. What I done, and what I need to do is show you how I cut it up, and I forgot to show y'all that. But I just cut that onion in half, and then each half I cut in 4 chunks, and that's how I put them in my jar. So that's about how big they are. They're in chunks. You really don't want them any smaller than that because they're just not going to be as firm and as good onions. So like I said, if you're using them, you can just cut them up the size you want once you get them out of the jar. But let's see, was there anything else that I left out? The onions, they're not ready yet, but once they are, they'll be processing for 40 minutes. And if you're doing, if you're wanting to pressure can onions and peppers together, you need to do it for 40 minutes. It takes onions 40 minutes, and it takes the bell peppers 30 to 35 minutes. The pints are 30 and your quarts are 35. But if you're going to do both the onions and bell peppers together, you need to do it for 40 minutes. So I don't know, I may think of something else and have to come back and tell you. But anyways, this is just a good way to preserve your bell peppers and your onions, and it's so convenient to have these on hand too. So I'm waiting for my pressure to come up, and then we'll start timing it. Okay, I remember now what else I was going to tell you. It took about 4 pounds of small to medium sized onions to do 9 pints. I just wanted y'all to know that, so y'all know about how much. I thought my 3 pounds of onions was going to do it, but I had to get into my other bag. So it ended up being about 4.5 pounds. Like I said, they were small to medium onions. So, and the other thing is, I went ahead and looked because I want to tell y'all that canned onions and peppers will last you, as long as they're properly canned and everything's sealed in a good dark pantry, will last you 3 to 5 years. If they last that long. I guarantee you mine won't, because we eat them all the time and stuff. But and if you open a jar up and put it in the refrigerator, it'll last about 2 weeks, whatever you got left over. But I don't think you will, because when I open a jar up, I'm going to use all of it in whatever I'm cooking usually. So anyways, I just want to tell y'all that. I had to come back and tell you what I was thinking about, or I'd lose my mind again and forget. So we got the steam now. We got the countdown for 10 minutes. Okay, it's there at 10 pounds of pressure. So we're going to start timing it for 40 minutes. Nothing is too small for him to carry. Take your burdens to Jesus. Nothing is too great. Why longer tarry? Take your burdens to him. Take your burdens to Jesus. Take your burdens to Jesus. All your load Jesus will carry. Take your burdens to Jesus.